Right, so we'll now move on to our C panel presentations, and I'd like to invite Christian Schaefer, who is our C1 convener.
G'day everyone. I've actually been the C1 convener for about 4 years, but this is the first time I'm actually presenting. I think COVID and other things have kept me busy, but anyway, let's get cracking. C1, now look, Russell will tell you it's about cables. Karina will tell you it all happens in the substation. Well, I'm here to tell you, without power system planning, nothing would get built. Actually, that being said, even with power system planning, sometimes nothing gets built, so let's just put that one aside. But what are we all about? Now this thing actually moves. Oops, wrong one. What are we all about? So C1 is the study of power systems. It's the economic analysis and the technical analysis to understand what we have to build where in order to maintain, grow and expand our power system. Where do we need lines? How much can you pay for them and so forth. But we also look at the tools and the methods that are used to develop it, whether it is the power system simulation tools. And we also have, and my predecessor, Graham Ansell, was a great champion for it, we look at the asset management side of things. And the Green Book that was published last year by Graham doing a fair bit of work on it, it's actually a really good piece of work that looks at the asset management condition monitoring that is used to inform the planning process when you're talking about REPEX, when you're talking about OPEX and CAPEX and what you're spending on what. And in Australia we've got 20 propeller heads, boffins, who love nothing more than power system planning, who love abstract thinking and outside of the box thinking in terms of how do we grow and build our power system. We've got representation, I'm proud to say that we've moved to the point where we've got every single transmission network service provider from Australia and New Zealand represented. We've also got a couple of our distribution businesses, but they're a bit more reluctant to come into the fold, but we'll get them yet. And we have a large number of experts from power system backgrounds, and we also now have Energy Co in there, so we want to see what they're up to as well. And it's been a busy, busy time. It's good to have that representation across both Australia and into the Tasman. Now the stuff itself, when we look at what we do, we are really about power system planning, the economics of it, how do you pay for it all, as well as interconnection. This is probably something more for Europe, where they're planning, I don't know, 5,000 kilometre lines from Russia into Europe and all sorts of stuff, like the really big stuff, the giga sort of volt kind of transmission line. And we're thinking about things here as well, but it's probably more interconnection of the East Coast. It's going to be a long time before we throw a cable across to the West Coast. We've got enough trouble throwing it across Bass Strait at the moment, but I'm sure we'll get there as well. I'm sure Sean will tell you it'll happen. But in any case, we look at asset management as well. There are 4 of these study areas, and there are a number of different implementations in the SAG of all of those. I've put them up for you, I won't go into too much detail. But it really is about the preferential subjects, and these have been, interestingly enough, the preferential subjects we've kept for the last, I think, about 3 CGRAS sessions, just showing how important these are about steering that energy transition, the top-down stuff. How do we figure out what we need to build and actually then implement the cables, the substations, all the other things that we need to. There is the flexibility of it as well, noting that there's been an increased focus on hydrogen as part of it as well, flexible loads. What can hydrogen achieve in terms of the flexibility we might need in building, operating and maintaining our power system? And resilience is something else that has been increasingly capturing the imagination. You've heard about resilience of transmission lines to weather events. The power system resilience itself is something that is increasingly coming into question, whether it's through weather events, whether it is through other threats such as, I suppose, state actors and other such things that might seek to do your systems harm. Resilience is becoming more and more critical and important. And as Chart, I think, said to me once, it's built during the planning phase but implemented during the operational stage. I'm sure there'll be more talked about. And so resilience is something that is going to be a focus of what we do now and going onwards. And it's a reflection also in the working groups. And I think most of the conveners have spoken with pride of the representation that Australian members have in the working groups of CGRA. And it's no different here in C1, where I've just put a number of the working groups that have been closed out during this year, the ones that are nearing completion and the ones that have gotten underway. And the little Aussie flags that I've put up there is really just a reflection that there is Australian contributions to all of those groups. So it's great to see. The resilience comment was that there are a number of them also in the working groups underway. In Cairns, we came together and it was good. The international C1 group came as well, and Antonio and Antonio Lochetto, who's our international chair, and Peter Roddy, who's a very busy and engaging secretary, were both here as well. Set up a fantastic group. Also, we had a lot of international styling in for those who couldn't make it, and it was a very, very interactive group as well. For those of you who had a chance to go to the hydrogen tutorial that C1 ran, it was actually very good as well. It talked about why is hydrogen as a flexible load giving such hope and potential as something that can happen. How does it differentiate between the technologies? I do believe it was video recorded. If you have a chance, go and have a listen to it. It is very, very entertaining, very informative and interesting. It was also I think, a good session to talk about the new working groups going forward. And interestingly enough, there's also resonance now with that offshore grid stuff. How do we plan and interconnect offshore grids? Plan for the North Sea, interconnecting countries from Denmark through to Germany through a giant offshore grid. We're starting off a bit smaller here, but there is also a thought about how do we plan our offshore grids and interface them into the Australian grid itself. Moving on though, the year that's gone and looking ahead, we have had a number of virtual meetings, and we're looking for next year having our first in-person meeting probably for about 3 years or something, which would be fantastic to see old friends, new friends, and everybody else that is going to be there. At that session, we're also going to be looking at a few things. So with a lot of the TNSP representatives in the group, we're looking at the sort of things that are challenging our planning work. And if you asked some of our TNSP people, social licensing is right up there. It's one of the biggest challenges. Well, it's not a technical thing. It seems to be a bit of a hurdle to overcome to get a technical solution. But integrated planning, the impact of new technologies on that planning process, the role of planning in the energy transition, and planning standards is something we're starting to develop a paper for, and maybe a larger document that we're hoping to share with, from an Australian perspective, the rest of our C1 colleagues and beyond that. And we've been asked also to provide input to the tutorial that's going to be held in Paris next year on the resilience of power system planning. So we're getting the TNSPs to bring that into a presentation and a series of slides that we can then share and work through during the tutorial as well. And of course, as I said, the reconnecting of the group in next year. And that's about all. Thank you.